Shrek is back!
Yay!
Yep, he's back for Smash and Crash Racing. Will it be a smash hit, or will it crash and burn?
Yes, that's right. Everybody's favourite ogre is back for another pointless cash grab of a video game. This time it's a racing game. Oh, hello! And before we get going on it, I just want to say that I love that they attempted to make a story out of this trash with the opening cutscene. The game opens with Shrek and Gingerbread Man partaking in a breath-holding competition. How thrilling! When Donkey shows up with a magic wand.
Careful, Donkey. That's Fairy Godmother's magic wand. You better return it to her.
Might have some difficulty doing that, considering she kind of died, but okay.
The wand does all sorts of weird things, like turn this onion into an onion carriage. Even though they already have an onion carriage, so that was kind of pointless. Although this one can fly for some reason. The wand also turns this snail into a massive hairy beast. I love that it just stands there in the background, confused as hell. Yeah, we don't know what's going on either, buddy. Your guess is as good as mine. And finally, the wand inexplicably shrinks Dragon.
Donkey, look what you've done! Now what are we going to do?
Rather than attempt to rectify these issues, everyone instead decides to jump on these things and use them as vehicles. Because why not? And by the way, there's no ending cutscene to this game, so these issues are never resolved. Yeah, Dragon really drew the short straw here. I bet she's thrilled Donkey sees the funny side of all this.
But look on the bright side. It's gonna be much easier finding your shoe size now.
That would probably be funnier if she actually wore shoes, but never mind.
I also love that the hairy beast likewise gets no say in this. Even on the game cover, he looks so depressed. Who could blame him though, really? Imagine the snail is just happily going about its day, and then out of nowhere, a big green fat man starts vigorously riding him.
Could this day get any worse? Why, God, why?
There are 4 playable characters to begin with, and they are Shrek, Fiona, Donkey, and Gingerbread Man. The remaining 8 characters can be unlocked by playing through the tournament, and the vehicles themselves are interesting, I'll give it that. And I'm not sure if I just have a dirty mind, but Donkey riding Dragon looks questionable to me.
That's what I'm talking about!
Well, now we know how little baby donkeys are made.
A handful of the characters simply use horses, such as Charming and Thelonious. Pinocchio, meanwhile, rides a wooden horse, which is a nice idea, but the constant trotting becomes incredibly aggravating after a while.
Make it stop!
Similarly, Gingerbread Man rides a cupcake horse, which is a little more creative, I suppose. Shrek's Swamp Beast is one of the most creative, simply because it's not a horse.
Whoa! This beast still be under warranty!
Although the way Shrek rides the creature is quite amusing.
Whoa!
I mean, how can he concentrate being thrown around like that, really? What's more, he just doesn't stop mindlessly chuckling to himself.
Well, at least someone's enjoying themselves, I suppose.
Puss in Boots rides a bull because he's Spanish, I guess?
Oh no, I'm already on my 9th life.
I've no idea where the bull came from. Since Puss is an unlockable character, this isn't explained in the intro. I guess he just had a bull at his disposal, as I'm sure all Spanish people do. You know, for emergencies. But at least with the Spanish theme, this kinda makes sense. There are certainly some more, dubious means of transportation. Red Riding Hood rides Big Bad Wolf for some reason. I mean, what's the story here exactly? Did they just naturally become the best of friends after what happened?
It's kinda weird that you'd willingly ride on the back of the thing that once ate you, but why not?
The same goes for Goldilocks here, who bravely rides a bear. And from the sounds of it, it's not a particularly comfortable experience.
That certainly doesn't sound just right to me.
I also have to question why Red Riding Hood and Goldilocks were even considered as playable characters. I mean, at least Big Bad Wolf is a prominent character, so Red is arguably justified, and there's also the fact that Red herself was a prominent character in a Shrek 2 game, for some reason. But really, considering the wealth of characters from the Shrek franchise that they could have chosen, why Goldilocks?
Does anybody here know this girl? Who invited her to the party?
3 tracks comprise a cup. There are 6 tracks available at the very beginning of the game, covering the Swamp Cup and a Far Far Away Cup, while the remaining tracks, the Factory Cup and the Dragon Cup, can be unlocked by playing through the tournament.
All I can say is, this better not mess up my hair.
There are actually 24 tracks in total, but 12 of these are merely mirrored versions of all the previous races, which I think is kind of a cop-out. I'd say these are just bonus tracks, but you still need to play the mirror mode to unlock all the characters.
Excellent! And with that pearl of a performance, you've unlocked Goldilocks!
blocks.
The tournament itself is interesting, and the locations are pretty varied. Although, if you're about to lose a race, there does not appear to be any penalty for restarting a race prior to finishing it, meaning you can simply play the race as many times as you want until you get the desired results, which is kinda dumb, really.
This is such an honor.
Most of the tracks are fairly well designed, but I do wish they were more clearly outlined. There are one or two that seem an utter mess to me, as it's really hard to see where you're supposed to be going.
I know, you missed.
The worst case of this for me is the Mountain Pass track.
Don't ever count Little Red Riding Hood out.
The track meanders all over the place, and personally I don't think there are enough arrows pointing you in the right direction. It's just pure chaos. Speaking of which, I actually think the arrow signs could do with being a little bit bigger. There were several times throughout the game when I couldn't read the sign properly until I was literally passing it. Despite this, most of the tracks are easy enough to grow accustomed to, even if on first visit they might seem a little confusing. I mean, the farmland track confused the hell out of me the first time I played it.
What's happening? Have I been abducted by aliens or something? Took your time, mate. Jesus.
You can play through the tournaments in either single-player mode or multiplayer mode, which is cool, although one major drawback of the multiplayer mode is that both players need to finish the race, even if one of them is last and far behind. There doesn't appear to be any way to skip this, and this is so far the only racing game I can think of that forces both players to finish the races. Completing the tournaments makes the races available to be replayed in the Cup Challenge and Quick Race modes in the main menu. The Cup Challenge allows you to play one cup at a time, which is basically 3 races in succession, while the Quick Race allows you to practice one race at a time. These are merely there to play for fun, as there's no reward. Likewise, the time trial mode also serves little purpose other than to beat your own times for the hell of it. There are no prizes whatsoever.
I guess winning's the only thing that looks good on me.
You might achieve a new world record, but this game doesn't give a Shrek shit.
As you can probably tell, one thing about this game that gets irritating fast is the dialogue.
You drive uglier than Shrek's driver's license picture.
Good one. That would actually be funnier if Shrek actually did have a driver's license. Are all Donkey's jokes this half-assed?
Now, don't get me wrong, it's a good thing that there actually is dialogue. That immediately makes this game far superior to the bland Blast games. But it would have been far better had they recorded more lines or used some of the repetitious dialogue more sparingly.
You should quit while you're behind.
Seriously, these quotes will drive you nuts. If I hear Shrek talk about his toenails again, I'm going to scream.
Come on, I've got toenails that are tougher than you. Come on, I've got toenails that are tougher than you. Come on, I've got toenails that are tougher. Come on, I've got toenails that are tougher than you.
It's particularly bad in the tougher races, as every time you fall off the track, you're subjected to the exact same line of dialogue every single time.
You can't keep a good donkey down. You can't keep a good donkey down. You can't keep a good donkey down.
Donkey, I swear, if you don't shut up, I'll put you down.
But in my opinion, the worst of the characters for repetitious dialogue is Humpty Dumpty.
Go ahead and cry to your mother goose.
I swear to God, he has like 2 quotes that he repeats on a constant loop.
Look who's got egg on their face. Go ahead and cry to your mother goose. Look who's got egg on their face. Go ahead and cry to your mother goose.
Dude, you're going the right way for a scrambling.
And honestly, with all of Goldilocks' constant groaning and screaming, I'm starting to wish that bear of hers would hurry up and eat her. Racing with the bear alone might be more, well, bearable. Everyone is so loud and annoying, and the quotes often overlap each other, so you can't make out anything but the same insufferable lines of dialogue of the character you're controlling.
Hey, stay far, far away from me.
And you know what? I honestly don't remember any of Gingerbread Man's quotes. All I can remember is his constant screaming.
To be fair, a perfect reflection of how I'm feeling inside.
But it's certainly not all bad. The controls themselves are fairly generic, but thankfully simple. There's an accelerate button, a reverse button, which I never had to use, and there's also the ability to tag your opponents. Similar to, well, you know, almost every other kart racing game ever. I do kind of wish there were a power slide button or something, as steering the vehicles can feel a little awkward. It's difficult to make sharp turns, and I went up the wall many times. Yeah, you might say this game's driving me up the wall in more ways than one. As for the tags, hitting one of these barrels gives you an item that will either help you or slow the others down. First, there are gnomes you can throw to bomb fellow racers. There are a couple of tags that home in on your opponents, namely the blow-up frog and the goose. There are also some items you can drop behind you, including a beanstalk to block the path,
As well as tiny little red crashing hood.
an explosive pumpkin,
Oh, who's up for some spin the tail on the donkey?
and a jack-in-the-box containing a bouncy Farquaad head. This is especially awkward to avoid, and I found myself running into my own trap several times.
What's an ogress to do?
There's an ice power-up which freezes everyone in a temporary block of ice. And there's also a shield to protect yourself from attacks. For me, the weakest pickup is the swamp gas. This is supposed to act as a smokescreen to obscure the track, but it doesn't seem to have much of an impact. It does slow the other racers down just a little, but it's really easy to maneuver around. And even if your vision is obscured, simply following the trail of gas brings you out the other side just fine.
Daddy's not continuous, man.
So what's the point, really? You also have the ability to hit your opponents up close. Every character has their own unique weapon. To name a few, Gingerbread Man uses candy canes, Pinocchio uses his nose,
Lucky bastard has one.
Lil Red uses her basket, and Donkey uses a microphone, I guess?
You know you've got a fire-breathing dragon on you, right? That should really give you the upper hand.
There's also a multiplayer battle mode in which the objective is to use the tags and weapons to hit your opponent.
Well, how do you like me now?
The first to reach 10 hit points is the winner.
You can't keep a good donkey down.
One thing I do like about this game is that it pays homage to the Shrek 2 game.
Yes, I basically like this because it reminds me of a much better game. I'm not sure that's really a good thing.
There are several references dotted throughout the races. For example, the jumping beans on the beanstalk look the spitting image of the magic beans, only with a palette change. There are also trolls that occasionally try to block your path, identical to the ones we've faced before. And there are also the far, far away guards that try to apprehend you, sending your vehicle spinning out of control.
What's an ogress to do?
While they're a nice reference to the far, far away level of Shrek 2, these guys are unbelievably irritating. They can slow you down so much that it can easily cost you the race. And you can barely see them. How is that fair? There are also some locations that are pretty similar. The Haunted Woods directly references the Spooky Forest, with the dragon statue, the Poison Apple pub, and the grumpy sentient trees.
Oh, who's up for some spin the tail on the donkey?
Oh, and we also see the return of our favourite eight-legged friend.
That's right, it's a giant spider! Again!
Something I think this game could benefit from is a map to tell you whereabouts you are in relation to the other racers. There's a feature that flashes on screen to let you know how far you are from the character in front of you, but I feel as though they could have made this a lot better. The icons on the left-hand side show what position everyone is in, what tags they've been affected by, and who was responsible for that tag. It's a nice feature, but there's no way of knowing exactly where the other racers are besides using the reverse camera, which is especially awkward since many of the tracks are so chaotic to begin with that using the reverse camera any longer than a couple of seconds is impossible to do without veering off the track.
Your name is Mud.
Also, I really don't know why they decided to assign a reverse camera to 3 buttons. R2 works for me, but the circle and triangle buttons do the exact same thing, and they're so awkward to press at the same time as the X button, which you use to accelerate. So why would you use these? I guess if you use the analog stick to accelerate, you could use these buttons as an alternative, but I still think there's an unnecessary number of buttons here that do the exact same thing. I also think that this game could be a little more rewarding. Yes, there are 8 characters to unlock, but otherwise the rewards are pretty minimal. There's no big prize or trophy or anything. The game just abruptly ends with the credits.
Oh well, I guess that's that then. Till the next Shrek game, I guess.
You can't keep a good donkey down.
This game is not nearly as bad as the critics made it out to be, although perhaps I'm being a little more lenient considering I've played far worse games. Heck, I've even played worse Shrek games.
I'm looking at you, Shrek Treasure Hunt.
It's a little simplistic, the dialogue can get annoying, and the game is pretty unrewarding overall, save for the unlockable characters. But if you're a Shrek fan, and who isn't, it's really nothing horrendous. The controls are satisfying enough, and I've played much worse racing games, because of course I have. It's me after all.
Ultimately, it might not be Shrektacular, but it could easily have been far, far worse.
Hey everyone, hope you enjoyed the video, and yes, I'm back to covering terrible licensed games, as you can tell. It was really weird editing this video actually, as I literally had a haircut the day after I recorded, and I've since lost some weight too, so it almost felt as though I was editing an old video or something. It almost didn't feel like I was looking at myself. Does that make any sense? Probably not. Anyway, this is also one of those awkward games where my old capture card decides to majorly exaggerate the contrast, meaning some clips are bizarrely very luminous, so apologies if I blinded you today. An extra special thanks to my patrons. I have recently used my Patreon funds to purchase something for a future video, and I'm pretty excited about it. I can't give any details as to when that video will be, but it's gonna be a fairly big one that's been on my to-do list for a long time. Anyway, thanks as always guys, hope you enjoyed, and hopefully I see you soon. Bye-bye for now.